Alright, so I'm going to show you how to make boot covers both with a serger and without a serger. This is a fabric that I bought a little while ago, and it's the most ridiculous thing ever. So I'm going to start out with the serger. What you're going to do is when you cut your spandex out, you want the greatest degree of stretch going widthwise, not up and down. So you put your right sides of fabric together. I've got my serger on a neutral differential feed and just a 3, so like a medium long stitch. So I'm going to sew up the front of it. I don't pin as I go because I tend to pin myself more than I pin the fabric. So line everything up, get a couple stitches in, and then you stop. And what you're going to do is you're going to hold the back of the fabric and the front of the fabric, stretch them both away from the needle while the machine is not going, and maintain that degree of stretch as you sew. And then stop to reposition, restretch. Oh, and like a total pro, I just sewed right off the edge of it. Sometimes I do that. I get nervous when I'm on camera, so we'll just fix that. So that's the front edge. Now I know sergers come with a stretch stitch for the most part. I never use it. I use the neutral setting because manually stretching the fabric as hard as you can gives you much more durability than a stretch stitch does. You can fight me on that, but I've been doing this for 30 years, and that is my professional opinion. So then you're going to put the elastic in. You can use 1/4-inch elastics, usually what the mass-produced stuff goes with. I tend to use a thicker elastic, usually 3/8. I've got some up here that I'll use. How tight you do is up to you. You want it so that it'll stretch over your skate, but still tight enough to hold it under your skate so it doesn't ride up as you skate. So I'll usually kind of go like 2/3 and then stretch it. That looks about right. I'm very scientific with things, as you can tell. Now, usually for this color, I would do white, but really it's under your skate, so it does not matter. So I'll put one side aside from the English. I'll put one elastic aside for the next side. I'm going to turn this right side out because it's easier. Now, I like to start with the heel because it's like a straighter edge at that part. I'm changing this over to a long stitch. Just get it secured in there. Then fold it over to the halfway point. Hold the halfway point under the toe seam, and then stretch it all out. Now I'm holding the front end to where we started. I'm just going to stretch to have that join. And keep going. So that is the bottom. Now you can hem the top with just a serged edge, or you can put a bit of elastic in. I usually like to put a little bit of elastic in. That one, you don't need to have it as much of a stretch as this because it's not a security issue. And if you have it too tight, it's going to cut off your circulation. So I usually do like just slightly less than. So it'll actually end up being about the measurement of, and then you lose some to the overlap. Now, one thing to note is I do it so that this is exposed. Some of the ones you purchase, you'll find that they're flipped under and stitched again. That adds more bulk to the elastic, and it takes away some of its stretch retention, because here it's got a lot more freedom. When you sew it down like this, it doesn't stretch and like bounce back as much. So I find when you do just a single layer, like in a bag, it doesn't look as professional as folding it under, because this is a lot more neat. But on your skate, this holds better. So I recommend doing this way. So again, lining it up till it gets under the needle, fold it in half, pull it. And as I restretch, I make sure that I keep that halfway point at the seam. And I stretch that to meet. So you've got the top. And again with this, you can fold it under. And for the top, I mean, that doesn't make a difference and it might be more comfortable. For me, I don't like the extra bulk there. So I'll just leave it like that unless it's being shown. Because usually if I'm doing a skate cover like this, I'll have pants over top of it or whatever. If this is going to be showing, then I do fold it under. And I'll just do a zigzag stretch right on this edge here. And you stretch it as you go. So when you run it through your sewing machine, you stretch it as hard as you can. And then you make sure you sew on this edge, not this edge. So that is a serger skate cover. So now I'll show you how to make it without a serger. So same as with the serger, you're going to take the fabrics and put them right sides together. You're going to start out with a straight stitch. It's going to be relatively short straight stitch. For this, I'm going 2. You can pin it together if you'd like. I don't bother. So once again, at that point, I just go and I line everything up. I stretch. Stop. And I'm basically just using the edge of my presser foot as the seam allowance. It does end up being a bit bigger on the other end of it because when you stretch it, it narrows it. So you're actually getting a wider final result. Get there. And do the same thing. So once you get the seam established, again, line up the ends, kind of stretch everything so it lays out, and then stretch it before you sew. So you're going to flip that over, set up a wide zigzag. And you're just going to sew the very end, and you're also going to stretch with this. And it can curl a little bit, that's fine. Again, same thing. Get it established. Something I want to address is you can see it curls here. When you stretch, you're adding more seam than like to the bulk of the fabric for what it is there than it is here. So that's why it ends up ruffling, because it's got more stitches to fit in there. So it does ruffle it. That is what gives it durability. That's why it can stretch. A lot of people say you need a serger to sew spandex. When I first went pro as a kid, I didn't have a serger and I was afraid of sergers, and I did everything straight stitch like this, and I beat my skating dresses up and they were perfectly durable. It's just a matter of the technique you use. So now we're going to do the elastic. So again, I'm starting at the heel. And I still have it on that wide zigzag. So I'm getting that started. And then fold it to find the halfway point. Oh, I forgot to fold it inside out, the right side out. Okay, again, fold to find that halfway point, hold it to the toe, stretch. So hold that to that original end. And as you get used to it, you'll use your fingers on this hand and your pinky on this hand to just manipulate where the elastic is versus the spandex. So again, you see it's wrinkling there. Now, the thing is, when you're sewing elastic, generally speaking, you do fold it like this. Like if you're doing a leg hole in a swimsuit or anything like that, if you sew towards the edge of an elastic, it does ruffle out like that. We call it a lettuce edge. However, this is to keep this edge clean. So it's when you look at this side, there's no elastic hanging out. There's no flap between the elastic and the spandex. So it's okay if you do this. This is going to be durable enough and it's going to hold. The lettuce edge doesn't matter. Now, if you have like a more narrow, so I like the thicker elastic because I find it retains, it's got more strength than if it's a 1/4 inch. If you're really concerned about the lettuce edge, the 1/4 inch, when you stretch it out like this, your seam basically covers it and you don't get the lettuce edge. So if the lettuce edge is an issue for you, that's something to consider. Personally, I am function over appearance, I guess. I mean, it's still going to look good. It's under your skates, so no one's going to see it, and that's part of why, you know, it started, functions perfectly fine. So again, we get that started, find the halfway point, line it up. So again, you've got a bit of the lettuce edge going on here, and that's fine. I'll show you how to finish it off. You're just going to flip it under, and you're going to stitch over the raw edge. And I'll usually go down one layer, like one width to do that. And when you sew, pull the spandex around it so it's nice and tight around the fold. If you don't, you get like a ruffle up here. So you go, serger skate cover, non-serger skate cover, raw edge at the top, hem at the top. You can see that looks a lot better. And you can do it at the bottom, like I said. It's just I find it doesn't grip as well, and it can come up off your skate. And like obviously, I'd rather keep it on your skate. So there you go, pair of skate covers.